Before we begin, let's take a breath. Now imagine stepping into warm silence. No phones, no pressure, just you suspended in stillness. At Mind Over Matter practice in Victor Harbour, you'll find space to truly reset, whether it's in their float tank, a private infrared sauna, or a guided ice bath designed to bring you back into your body. Mention Trav when you book and receive 15% off of all treatments. Go to mindovermatterpractice.com.au. This is where the healing begins. G'day legends, welcome to this episode of the Cold Exposure Hot Topics podcast. I'm your host, Trav Dittmar. I'm joined today by Dan Lauszus. Dan, how you going, mate?
Good, man.
Yeah.
Good.
Now, whereabouts in the world are you at the moment?
I'm in Dubai. Came from Sri Lanka, from Adelaide to Sydney for a month. Then I was in Sri Lanka for 3 months. Now I'm in Dubai for about a month. And then I plan to go somewhere along the Middle East and then Europe. Sold everything I own in Adelaide. So I'm a free agent at the moment.
Yeah, wow, man, that's so exciting. What brought on the desire to travel the world like that?
Well, everything sort of happened in good timing. So my last relationship that ended around October. The two of us mutually split up after 7 years, so it was a long relationship. We split up on good terms, fortunately. And once that happened, I moved out for about give or take 3 months, and an opportunity came up for me to go from Adelaide to Sydney. I was supposed to meet a friend there, and we were going to do an adventure event in Cairns. That event got cancelled due to the floods that happened in Cairns. There was a few other things that led to that. And as I was planning to go to Sydney, I thought, you know what? I have an online income. I'm single. I have nothing that's holding me back to Adelaide other than the things I own. And famous quote from Fight Club is the things that you own end up owning you. So I thought, you know what? Let's sell everything. Let's travel while I can. And in Sydney, when we went to go for a surf, we rented some surfboards off of a guy called Wayne. And after we went to return the surfboards, we had a conversation with him. And he told us that he's got surf resorts and surf shacks all over the world. And he's got a place in Sri Lanka that's a little bit of a dump at the moment, but it's in a beautiful location. And he needed a team that could renovate the place in exchange for accommodation and free food. And that led us to Sri Lanka, and that was the beginning of my journey.
That's incredible. Like, it happened so quickly, didn't it? Like, your relationship ends, you're reevaluating your life, you get over to Sydney with this whole plan of going in one direction, and then suddenly you're building a cafe in Sri Lanka. That's pretty unreal, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's funny how these things work, all in good timing. And you look back and you think, hang on a second, everything just sort of clicked. Everything happened for a reason. You can kind of connect the dots when you look back, but at the time you just think, oh, what a cool opportunity. I'll take that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hindsight's 2020 with that sort of thing, but the fact that you've just gone, hell yeah, let's go and do it. That's an attitude that takes a lot of courage, and especially when you're just starting out on a journey like that. So full credit to you there for sure.
Yeah, as exciting as it is, it's also, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty around that. So yeah, courage for sure.
100%. So when you first got to Sri Lanka and saw the situation, saw the resort or the cafe that you were looking at building, what was your first thought?
Sorry, cut out a tiny bit there. What was it like, did you say?
I said, what was your first thought when you saw the cafe?
Okay, my initial thought of arriving in Sri Lanka was this place is beautiful. It's like Bali, just a little bit less busier, less touristy. And when we saw the cafe, I thought, oh, I knew it needed work, but this is on another level. This is like, it just looked like an abandoned homeless shelter. All the tables were run down. Almost all the furniture you could see were furniture that we could not use for the final product. The walls were all like flaky paint. Like the whole thing had to be repainted. There was mold on the ceiling and on the walls that we had to shave off to the bone. There were like bits of brick falling off that we had to replaster. The whole thing was an absolute mess. Like we were literally starting from ground zero. We didn't have a huge budget as well. Obviously, there was the language barrier. Everyone in Sri Lanka works on what we call island time. Everyone's got their own clock. So you tell someone that at 7 a.m., they'll rock up the next day at 10 p.m. if they came that day. And any 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 negotiations that you're doing are just 10 times harder than you would imagine, like in the Western world in a place like Australia. And initially, I just thought this is going to be super cool. Look at the place now. Imagine what we're going to build. But man, it was a journey. It was an absolute journey to negotiate with these different people. Um, some days we would wait an entire week because we were waiting for money to come in to purchase something. A lot of the time we were using our own money, learning to trust the operator and the organizer, knowing that money would actually come through. And yeah, it was a journey of like trust, grit, and just perseverance to actually, get the job done. But once we got to the end and we saw the final product, we were, very proud of ourselves, and it was such a beautiful project to work on.
Yeah, certainly a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity, isn't it? Unless you're a construction manager, but yeah, you don't see that every
Mm.
day for sure. So how did you, going back to like the negotiation and the language barrier and whatnot, how did you bridge the gap with the locals?
So thankfully in Sri Lanka, a lot of people do speak English. Sometimes you just have to say something 3 times and explain it with your hands. Like, we need wooden pole for this. Wooden pole go up, and
Yeah.
we need big wooden plank here. How much for wood? And that's essentially how we got everything done. Like from the plumbing to the electrician. We built a jungle gym as well. So immediately when we got there, we looked for the local gym. That is, gyms around the world actually cost a lot more than Australia. We're actually very fortunate to have, gyms like $7 a week in Australia, which is absolutely ridiculous. You tell anyone around the world, whether they're from Ireland, England, all these Western places, but even a place like Sri Lanka, 50 USD for a month, like that is even obscene to pay that for a gym in Australia, but that is so standard and, like a decent price. And mind you, the gym in Sri Lanka was nowhere near the quality it would be in Australia. So we signed up for that gym. We didn't actually go too often because we're spending a lot of our energy at the cafe. And, and we even paid a lot of money to hire our own scooters, which we never even used because we were normally at the cafe, aside from doing a few trips for negotiations. So we ended up building a jungle gym. And yeah, it was tough work because everything that we needed to build on the sand, we were building, I would say everything was at least 3 meters deep. And when you're digging in sand, the sand's constantly caving in, and then you're digging again, the sand's caving in, and then you're lifting these huge logs that must be, all the logs must have been, at least somewhat like 50 kilos, and you're carrying this on your shoulder, tearing your shoulders apart because it's like, it's ripping into your shoulders. We've got like scars all down our shoulders and our chest, and we're like heaving, deadlifting these big logs, dumping it in, and then we're making sure it's level. Yeah, and then we've got to carve out like holes evenly to chuck in a pull-up bar. We built like a bench. We built some, jungle gym weights. And yeah, so we built our own jungle gym. So then we didn't need the gym. Um, yeah, so the negotiations was essentially, you know, few words, trying to think of those words that were interchangeable, things that they were able to understand. Wood, big pole pointing to it. That's essentially how we
Yeah.
got it done.
No, that's incredible. I love that whole, you know, too expensive to go to the gym. Like, let's just build one ourselves. That's unreal. It's crazy that though, 50 US dollars. So that'd be what, close to $100 Australian, wouldn't it, per month?
Or maybe $80 Australian per month, which is $20 a week, which is probably how much gyms were back in the day. But as you know now, all the gyms competing against each other, competitions actually become a really good thing for the consumer because everyone's competing against each other. So you're looking at memberships at where that are, between $8 and $12 a week, which when you really take a step back and you think about your health, and if that's the one thing that's the catalyst for your growth, if you're going to the gym, then you're getting good sleep and then you're getting good hydration, you're more likely to get on top of your nutrition. $12 a week. I mean, that's probably 20 minutes of work for a lot of people. So it's actually it yeah, invokes a lot of gratitude for what we do have in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I suppose those sort of things will come. It's a bit more of a developing country, I guess, than what Australia is. So hopefully, that all levels out over there. Tell me a bit more about like the people and the culture over there. What was some of the highlights in that respect for you?
So the people in Sri Lanka are some of the most beautiful people in the world. Like all you need to do, at first they look at you as a Westerner and they try to judge you. And not to be racist by any degree, but there are a lot of Russians in the place that we were in Hikkaduwa, and many Russians are just like blank faces. They're like talking to a brick wall. Like I remember one time, I think I was just kind of walking, and like I bumped into this person, and I went, "Oh, sorry," and they just like walk past you like this with a blank face, and they just have like no character, no personality, and there's a lot of people like that. So because the Russian community is so prevalent there, that's like their holiday. For Australians to go to Bali is like Russians to go to Sri Lanka, especially with a lot of the war and a lot of the hardships that they're facing. A lot of them are in Sri Lanka. But as soon as you smile at a Sri Lankan, straight away you get a smile back, and not a fake smile, just such a genuine human to human smile. And they're so kind. They go out of their way to help you. And I made so many connections in Sri Lanka, just talking to people, networking. I spent a lot of the time at the cafe that I was at eating the local food that was sort of attached to the cafe, which was part of the deal that we got free food. But eventually we started to drift away from that food, just for like hygienic reasons and stuff. And we just started to like, pull away from that. And so I started eating at the local cafe next to where I was, which was called Amaru. And that was more of a Western cafe. So closer to Australian prices, cheaper, but definitely not, Bali or Sri Lankan prices. And I started to make good friends with the owner there. And that led me to wanting to um, build something for them, a sort of community. Because what I realized is when I was having breakfast there and coffee there every day, is every traveler seemed to sit on their own table. No one was talking to each other. And as you know me, I'm very extroverted and I like to talk to people. And so I would often go to a table and start talking to someone. I go to another table, start talking to someone, introduce myself. Oh, where are you from? What's your background? What are you doing here? And I noticed that everyone really wanted to talk, but everyone felt so isolated. And I feel like this was the case ever since COVID. People are naturally quite reserved until you give them the opportunity to open up. And his name was Sapun, the owner. Sapun owned the cafe along with Mel. It was like I think they're married, but they're at least in a partnership, and they both own the cafe. They're beautiful people. Mel was actually Australian, Sapun is Sri Lankan. And I said, I run these community sessions back in Australia where we go through some movement, breath work, followed by meditation. And I'd really love to run a one-off session here, completely free. Everyone at the cafe is welcome to come. It's open invite. Can I run that for you? And they said, yeah, sure. So I ran that session and it was really successful. The people that did it were extremely grateful, and they had the best time. And they said, "Can invite my friend next week? I really want to do this again." I said, "Sure, let me talk to Sapun, and I can run one next week." And so that one-off session, I started running those sessions weekly, and Sapun suggested to me, instead of running free sessions, would you like to just charge for a session? Because most yoga teachers here, they charge 3,000 rupees a session, which is about $17 Australian. And I spoke to Mel about it, and Mel was a little bit more on that. Police are very hot on people, working around Sri Lanka. Locals get a little bit annoyed because you're taking money from Sri Lankan and the people that actually have working visas. So I said, okay, I'll continue to run free sessions. And then the next day, Mel passed my number on to a tour group that travels around Sri Lanka. And this tour group is called We Road. And they have communities from, France or Spain or Germany. And it was a kind of setup similar to what's that tour group they do often in Europe, where you have these tour groups that come together.
Oh, that's the Kentucky, is it?
Kentucky, yeah. So it's similar to Kentucky, and they run that in Sri Lanka. And so she passed my number on to a group called We Road, which is similar to Kentucky. And the tour leader of We Road, I got my first message from them. They said, "Hey, we're looking for a yoga teacher in Sri Lanka. We're going to be in Hikkaduwa next week. Um, how much do you charge for a yoga session?" And so I messaged Mel and said, "I'm not a yoga instructor. I think they're looking for a yoga instructor. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to say?" And she said, "Oh, yoga instructor that's normally here, she's gone back to France or Switzerland, I think. And so she's no longer here. So you're the yoga teacher." I was like, okay, well, I'm not a yoga teacher. But I messaged the tour group and said, "Look, it's 3,000 rupees each. I do a yoga inspired flow, which is similar to yoga vinyasa, because I've done a lot of yoga, but I'm not technically a yoga teacher. And that's followed by breath work and meditation. Would your group like to join?" And they said, "Yeah, we'd love to join. 3,000 is completely fine." And then I ran that session, realized I had to pay a percentage to a guy that ran the tour group, which he told me after. He said, "Hey, I organized it." And it was just a bit of an awkward silence. And I'm like, "Okay, I guess I owe you some money." And then when the group came, they came from like 10, and a few people pulled out. And so only 3 people came. And I realized that it's you're supposed to give the tour leader a free session. So I didn't make a lot of money off that first session. But as I started to run these sessions, the tour group started to pick up on my name, and I ended up running sessions, maybe 3 or 4 sessions a week, sometimes 10 or so people coming through. And I actually ended up making enough income um, over 2 weeks to afford all the food there, all my living expenses there. And I didn't spend any of my own money, just through networking and wanting to build community from a genuine place, not even trying to make money. But I guess that's how the opportunity came for me. So I started building those sessions and started creating community. People started to socialize with each other. We'd get food afterwards. And that's how that came about.
That's incredible, man. Like, just what I've admired from your journey this year, especially with your travels, is just your confidence and your ability to say yes to things and figure it out as you go. Calculated, obviously, but yeah, it's just unreal what can happen. Like, 3 months before that, you were sitting in Sydney planning for an adventure event, and now you're running yoga-inspired flows for for a cafe resort style operation in Sri Lanka. Like, it's incredible. Um, so been out of Sri Lanka for a little while now, staying in Dubai. How's I imagine it's quite a different setting to what you were in before. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You get here and you just feel like a small fish in a big ocean. I went from, Sri Lanka feeling like you're on top of the world and you're the richest man there. Not that I was, but you walk around in these nice clothes and you see people that are really going through hardships and really struggling. and you really feel like you should tip these people or help these people, and you get to Dubai and you just think, help me. You just see people with like it's not uncommon to just see Ferraris and Lamborghinis driving. Like it would be an odd day to walk down the street and not see like a really nice Porsche or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. You go to the local gym and you just see this brand new Ferrari parked out the front. As I'm walking down the street, sometimes I'll see someone like open their garage door to walk out towards their car, and you peek inside just on a random street, and it's like a palace, and you just think, man, these people. But the culture here is very conservative. So you speak to people and you say something simply like, "How are you?" and they don't know how to respond. They just what do you mean, how are you? They're just, hi, get on with their day. They're very blank, they're very reserved. And so I came here and I felt a little bit isolated because you almost don't feel like you're around people, at least not at first. And that took a little bit of time to adjust to. And I just, for lack of better words, I just felt like I was a tourist in a big city, not really like a human amongst a community. And, after a week or so, I went to a place called Atlantis, which I actually got in for free, which is this huge water park and this aquarium. And the reason I got there for free is because I networked in Sri Lanka, and someone I knew in Sri Lanka knew the manager of Atlantis here in Dubai. And Atlantis is this beautiful place where you've got like an underwater hotel and kitchen and rooms where it's attached to like an aquarium, and you can just be like dining with food, and you have these like sharks swim by. And when I was at Atlantis, I went to a water park and I met a guy from Morocco, and I asked what he did for work, and he said, "I'm a kickboxer." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you do for work?" And he said, "I'm a professional kickboxer. So this is my work." And I'm like, "Man, that's super cool." So I met him and his partner. We really connected on a on a water slide. Um, Brutal water slide as well. It was just like a straight drop. They have the biggest water park in the entire Middle East. Everything's on steroids in Dubai. So everything you see is like the biggest in the world, or they're building something that's going to be the biggest in the world. And so we connected, and he said, "Look, man, if you're looking to network and build community, Dubai is one of the best places for that. Everyone's trying to lift each other up. Everyone's trying to support each other." And I thought, this is a side of Dubai that I don't even know. So he invited me to Run Club the following Saturday, which was a few days ago now. And he told me, you go there, you do your run, you do your 4 kilometers, and you get free coffee afterwards. So I went to this run club not knowing anybody. He didn't even show up. So I was just amongst maybe 40 people, other runners, and everyone sort of knew each other. And, you go to this place and everyone's sort of saying hi, hello, hugging each other. And I'm just standing there like, "I'm Daniel." Like, it's that awkward feeling when you go to a new group. And, before long, people started talking to me, a lot of people from Ireland, and, people that were living there for the last year or so, doing work there. And when that 4 kilometer run club finished, we all ordered our meals and actually connected with two other online trainers and other people in their selective fields, which was really cool. And we were lining up for our food and coffee, and it was relatively expensive cafe. When you're traveling, you're always trying to budget. And I thought, okay, this is like a bit of a high-end cafe. So I ordered a smoothie bowl. I added peanut butter. I added berries. And then I got a ice long black, and I added an extra coffee shot, and thought, okay, this is going to be a bit of money, maybe, $40 Australian or something like that. But if you're doing that every day, that's, you do that 3 meals a day, that's $120 plus like your toothpaste and your shampoo and all of that. And if you're living like that daily, that, that adds up. So I bought all of that. I sat down, finished my food, finished my coffee, realized I had to catch up with a friend from Saudi Arabia that was coming to visit. Another crazy story, his story alone. And I realized that even though his name was Mark, the guy I was going to catch up with, even though him and I were supposed to both meet up at Kite Beach, when I put it in maps, 15 minutes away from our catch up, I realized that he was an hour walk from me. And I thought, wow, this place is huge. I've got to go catch a taxi. So I said, guys, I got to go pay for my meal and my coffee, so I can catch this guy, which is an hour walk away. And I explained the situation, me thinking I was only around the corner from him. And so I said, where do I pay? And they said, oh, don't worry about it. And I was like, what do you mean? I've got to pay for my meal. And they said, no, it's on the house. And I thought, all right, how does that work? That seems strange. I feel like I'm stealing here. And they said, no, the guy that runs it, forgot his name now. He just pays for it all. And I'm like, what? All 40 of us, like we've all ordered a this guy must have a bill of at least $1,000. And he does this every single week. And they said, yeah, he's got a lot of money. His dad owns a real estate company and they have a bit of a partnership with the cafe. And he's got a lot of money too. And he really just wants to create community. He doesn't want anyone selling anything in here. He just wants to help everyone in Dubai feel included. And he noticed that a lot of people were feeling lonely in Dubai. So he's created this for everyone to want to come do a run and have some breakfast and coffee. And I just thought you would never see that in Australia. Someone spending $1,000 a week just on, like, he doesn't even know who I am. I'm just some dude that came from Australia and, so yeah, had the free breakfast and coffee, connected with some people, and one of the guys said, "Hey, I'm actually driving that way. Let me give you a lift so you save money on a taxi." I thought, okay, that's really generous of you. So he dropped me off, caught up with Mark, and yeah, then I started to see another side of Dubai as we were on our way to drive to Mark. The guy that I was with said, this is Dubai. This is everywhere. Like this community, everyone trying to lift each other up. This is one of the places in the world where everyone's just trying to help each other. Everyone's just trying to build each other up. No one's trying to take from each other. And that's where I am now. I'm starting to connect with people that really just want to help each other, build each other up, and create a successful life and successful beings. So that showed me another side of Dubai, which I'm exploring now.
Yeah, that's incredible, and you're right. You would never see that in a million years in Australia, or maybe if one bloke won on the pokies or something like that, he might shout his mates. But yeah, that is completely unheard of, and actually quite a refreshing story to hear because you do, from someone who has only ever been to Dubai Airport on a stopover. When you hear about Dubai, you think it's very much the rich culture. People are maybe a bit smug, like you said, a bit conservative and stuff. But that that humanity, we are still all human at the core, and to be able to find that in that sort of environment is actually, yeah, a really refreshing story to hear.
Yeah. And the guy I met, Mark, afterwards, he has a crazy story too. He was actually the reason I got into personal training 5 years ago. I messaged him when I was just starting my fitness Instagram page. I had about maybe 40 followers at a push 50. I really just started it, and they were just friends that came from my personal account, which has now grown to over 2,000. So that's my main account now. And I asked him, I said, man, like, how do you get into personal training? You're literally living my dream. Because he had like 5,000 plus followers at the time. And this was 5 years ago. And I just thought, man, this guy is doing like personal training. He's working online. He's living the dream. And maybe 2 years into my own personal development journey and my personal training journey, after him telling me the best way to start is to just get your personal training certificate, and then you'll learn a lot more through your own research and your own actions than you will in the course, but it's a good place to start. So I started that, and as I started following him, I realized at one point he was in Saudi Arabia, and I'm like, man, what are you doing in Saudi Arabia, like in the middle of the desert? And he told me that he got given an opportunity to work with a prince in Saudi Arabia as his own personal trainer. And so, this is royalty in the Middle East. And he had a crazy story. So he actually went over there during COVID, and he had to sign a release form in Australia to say that he's not coming back. That was the only way they would let him go. And then he was in the airport. It was just him in the airport during COVID. He hopped on a plane, the only person on the commercial plane. And the only thing he had to go off was like a couple of Zoom calls with this random person that was a prince in Saudi Arabia. He got to the airport in Saudi. He walked out and it was just an empty airport. He got picked up by this, I don't know if it was a limousine, but it was like this very nice car, tinted windows. A butler opens up the door and says, hop in. And so he hopped in, and all of a sudden they were driving, and then they start heading out towards the desert. And he's like, "Okay, cool. Like this is where my life ends. Like I'm getting taken."
You
This,
would.
and and after about an hour of driving, they rock up to this big palace, and he goes through the doors, and he's seeing like Beamers and Bentleys in the garage. Connects with this prince, and um, yeah, he just told me his story working there. He said it was, extremely hard there. Everything's so conservative. Everyone is very, um, you just feel very isolated from the world. It's one of the reasons it's unusual to have a 50 degrees Celsius day there. It's such a dry heat that he would often put like eye drops in his eyes just so his eyes wouldn't dry out. Things for his mouth because his mouth was getting so dry. And he said, you know how hard it is to tell like someone in the Western world to do something and to follow a diet. He said, imagine coaching someone that has been fed by a golden spoon their entire life. Like they just don't want to listen. And so he was constantly talking to the chef saying, we need to have these meals. We need them calculated. This is what he needs to be eating. You need to tell him this. And there was a whole language barrier. And he spent at least the last 3 years there working with royalty, other members of the family, and isolated from the Western world, essentially like going out to the mines and being away from your family, but actually never coming back and just being there. So he's had an incredibly tough life. He's made a lot of money there. But as we were talking, and this is really interesting, as we were talking, he was saying he doesn't know if he's made the right choice because although there's a lot of money to be made there and he's doing quite well, when he comes out of Saudi Arabia, even though the royalty, the family speaks with places like Dubai, they never share business, so they would never pass the contact on. So he says, once I leave there, I'm back to ground zero. I've got to build my online business again. Do I want to start again from scratch? The market's also so saturated. Is that really what I want to do? And so he's questioning a lot of these things. And we were having a really interesting conversation. I was telling him about how I was starting to build business in Sri Lanka, and I'm thinking about that as a pathway. We talked about a lot of the coaches in Bali that have this lifestyle where they're making an online income and they're able to live in Bali, years and years. But what happens when you leave Bali? Yeah, you've supplemented your lifestyle, but maybe you leave Bali, go back to Australia, and you're this online coach. And if you're not making enough income to be able to support your living in Australia, you're back to ground zero. What qualifications do you have? So yeah, that was a really interesting story. The last thing I'll probably add to that is just the people that he met. He's training a princess there. Her dad owned Twitter at one point, so these are like big names. And he was on a plane with the Bin Laden family, and he was like talking to them on the plane, and they were having like he said they were just really switched on with business, really nice people, but it was crazy to meet them. And he said, I just have so many stories, like horror stories and beautiful stories that I'd love to share, but you can't share anything that's related to Saudi because it's just extremely, extremely private and controlled. So yeah, and so he's still here, so we'll probably tee up another catch up. But yeah, that was really interesting.
That's insane. I can't believe that. It's just crazy how much money there is around in the world, and imagine just being a coach in Australia and then just getting a call, hey man, come and change your life, and away you go. Like similar story in that sense to you, where it's like a bit of a leap to go, and then it's like, all right, let's do it, and then all of a sudden you've said yes, and new doors open up that you've never perceived as possible before.
Yeah, 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 insane, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's be real. Life isn't getting any easier. If you're feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, or just stuck, it's time to rebuild from the ground up. Mind Over Matter Practice in Victor Harbor is a recovery and resilience studio helping people like you train their response to stress using proven and powerful methods. From cryotherapy and float tanks to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, neuro-optimal brain training, and private infrared or steam sauna sessions, they're not offering fluff. They're offering tools that work. And if you're listening to this, you get 15% off Just mention my name, Trav, when you book. Go to mindovermatterpractice.com.au and take yourself seriously. No one else can do this for you. So, you said Mark was someone that you looked up to quite a few years ago when you were starting out on your own journey. A little bit before that, what was it that made you interested in the first place in becoming a PT at first and then, going on to the things that you have done? What brought it on? Was it always an interest, or was there some life-changing circumstances, or what sort of led to you being the man you are now, essentially?
Yeah. Well, I was working as a plumber at the time, so anyone watching this might not know that I'm actually a qualified plumber. So when I finished high school, I was working in fast food. I originally set out to go to university and study criminology. I got into criminology, but the only reason I got into criminology was because when I was at school, there's so much pressure to go to uni. Go to uni, or you're essentially your life is nothing. Like that. That is kind of the message that I feel like is put on a lot of students when they finish high school, and that's at least what I experienced. And I thought, okay, well, if I've got to go to uni, practically just gave me like two or three sheets and said, these are all the degrees that you can pick from. This is what you can do in your life. Anything else, doesn't really matter. You can choose to be a dropout and do a trade or retail or whatever, or you can actually make something of your life and go to university and put yourself in debt, even though you don't know what you're going to do. I think it's crazy. But I was watching a lot of, not a lot of, but I was really intrigued by like NCIS. And as a kid, I used to love like Scooby-Doo. So investigating mysteries and, solving crimes and all of that. I thought, oh, that's really cool. I'd love to be one of those like crime scene investigators. So I put my application for criminology. When I finished school and I was working in fast food, I looked a little bit more into what jobs you could get from criminology. I realized that it was more about like criminal law and a lot of like paperwork, and actually had nothing to do with crime scenes. That was more of the police officer route and different ranks in that. So I thought, okay, this isn't actually even what I want to do. So I put it off, took a gap year. My dad, so my mum's Australian, my dad's German, and he's like a classic strict German dad, very high on like discipline, integrity, and like taking action. And he said, you need to do something with your life. You can't just take a gap year. You're wasting your life. And really, I was just trying to work out what I wanted to do. I thought about becoming a police officer, getting into real estate. I just had no idea what I wanted to do. And he said, look, if you don't know what to do, get a trade. And so there was a lot of pressure on me to just, take action. So I put an application in to become an electrician and a second application to do my plumbing course. And I didn't get into the electrician course because it was too late in the year by the time I applied, but I got into plumbing, started doing my training, and within a month or so, I did work experience for a company called Jordan Plumbing. They took me on as an apprentice. I went through the 4-year apprenticeship, but during that apprenticeship, I really got into personal development books, personal development podcasts, started training every day. I started coming across a guy called Wim Hof, and I started doing breathing. I read a book from the Dalai Lama about the art of happiness. So I started learning emotional intelligence and the importance of meditation. So I started really just working on myself through plumbing. But while I was working on myself through the week, I was so lost in what I wanted to do with my life and my career that I would drink and do drugs on the weekend. My social group was, into smoking weed a lot, so I got into that. And so I was kind of this lost person that would live for the weekend, get, high on drugs and start drinking. And then I would regret that on the Sunday. And then I'd go through the week working on myself. And it was this constant cycle. And through that, I started to find fitness and training as the catalyst for my personal growth. So I would spend hours and hours in the gym. I would finish work at about probably about 2 p.m. I would start early, finish at about 2 p.m. I'd rock up to the gym at 3 p.m. I'd be so tired because I was so sleep deprived, sometimes getting like 5 hours sleep. So I'd finally get to the gym, I'd smash a pre-workout, sometimes sink a cone, and then I would go into the gym and I would start off probably with a 5 kilometer run. Then I would get into the gym, I'd stretch for about half an hour, 45 minutes. Then I would hit the weights for about 2 hours. Really, I would be doing about an hour of weights, but I was with my mate a lot of the time and we would just be, chatting. And then I'd finish off with maybe like a 3 kilometer swim and a sauna. I'd get home, I'd smash a heavy meal of carbs and protein, and then I would pack all of my lunch. I would do some reading, go to sleep, and then I would repeat that 5 days a week. And so I did that for about 2 to 3 years, 5 hours in the gym doing different things. And that's how I started to build like a solid foundation for my health and fitness. And, that led me down the track to what I've done now, the 106 kilometer ultra race in Mount Kosciuszko, 70 kilometer solo paddle across the ocean, and all of these things that are, seem like I've just got this, crazy, crazy discipline and mental fortitude, which don't get me wrong, it takes, but I built this base during my plumbing years when I would just become an animal and train nonstop. And, through my apprenticeship was when, I started training every day. And actually, the reason I started my fitness account was not to become a personal trainer. It was just to share tips and to share my fitness journey with the world. And as my apprenticeship came to an end, COVID started, and although I was about to be qualified as a plumber, because COVID had hit, a lot of construction sites were getting closed down, so they were losing people, and so they were getting rid of apprentices. They were getting rid of plumbers. So when it came time for me to become a qualified plumber, they had no room to take any qualified plumbers on. So they signed me off as a qualified plumber, and it was up to me whether or not I wanted to sign up to be a plumber at another company that were hiring, or I could pivot and transition into something I was more passionate about. And at this point, I was really switched on wanting to chase my passion and to chase my dreams. And I really wanted to be someone that was traveling around the world creating adventure videos, like a YouTuber. And logically, I thought, how long until I start making money off YouTube? Let's be real, some people don't even make it on YouTube. So logically, it would be smarter for me to be a personal trainer because I know people can make money in personal training. And it seemed quite obvious at the time that if I'm passionate about health and fitness, why not become a personal trainer? But that was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. So I knew that my dad would disagree with this decision. So I got on the phone from someone with the AIF, the Australian Institute of Fitness, and said, look, sign me up. I'll pay it all up front because it's the only way I'm going to be able to commit to it. So I did that, told my dad that I'm becoming a personal trainer. He gave me the whole spiel of this isn't a real job. You're making a mistake. Um, all of that. So I signed up to become a personal trainer, started studying, and at this point I didn't have a job, right? Because I just finished plumbing and I was studying my personal training certificate. And my dad was on my back again saying, you can't just be doing this gap year, you got to be doing work. And he said, sign up to work at a petrol station, whatever, just make some money. And I'm like, all right, cool. So get you off my back, I'll go get a job. So I didn't want to work at a petrol station. I thought if I'm gonna work somewhere, it's got to be something that's headed in the direction that I'm going.
Yeah,
So I
really.
signed up to be, yeah. So signed up to be a sales consultant at Good Life Health Clubs. When I started working as a sales consultant, I learned how to speak formally with people because I was speaking to like doctors and lawyers as opposed to talking to the guys on the construction site, eating meat pies and scoffing down iced coffees. And, my mates that were like smoking weed and banter. So I had to speak properly and carry myself properly. And even though I was studying my personal training certificate, every part of me didn't actually want to become a personal trainer because it was so scary to like start my own business, get my own ABN. And the personal training manager came up to me one day after about 5 months of working in this role and said, "Hey, we've got an open position. Someone paid for a contract to work here at Good Life, which was like $1,000, and then you pay weekly, but it's a free contract for you. If you want it, you can have it." and I decided that that was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. So then I started working as a personal trainer at Good Life, and then a year or two down the track, I got into online.
Yeah, wow.
Sure.
It's yeah, a lot of different steps there and yeah, very, very different, isn't it? Going from a construction site where it's very much who's working hardest, who's slacking off and who's the biggest dog in the yard to a bit more of a collaborative and constructive professional environment. Yeah, it would have been a big difference. And I suppose the question I'm leading to here is from that transition to um, the PT side of things, is that where the alcohol and the drugs sort of fell off when you started working at Good Life, or was that still something that was sort of in the background?
Yeah, that was somewhere around my fourth year of apprenticeship. I got into trouble. I got so while I was drinking on weekends and doing drugs and stuff, and probably not as heavy into drugs but a lot into drinking. And I was the kind of person where you'd have one drink, another drink would follow, until sometimes I'd just get blacked out and just do just silly things. And I remember sometimes waking up in a train on the way home, and one time I went out to this work party at a train station, Womma train station, which is like close to Elizabeth, and I just had like a fine. I think it was in my pocket. I just like pulled out this fine, and it was by the police, and it said $200 fine for drunk and disorderly. No idea what I even did that night. And I got into yeah, I just got into trouble a lot, and it led me down to a path where like I almost went to jail, and that really hit me hard. And not to go into the full story, but long story short, this was like the second time I got in trouble, and I was essentially being bullied by a security guard without going too deep into it. And I pushed the security guard, two hands to the chest. He fell down, and actually apparently did his ACL from that. After further investigation, I'm pretty sure he made that up, but he really milked the situation to make up this whole fight scene that I like punched him and then kicked him and then threw him up against the wall. And conveniently, they had no footage that they could prove it, even though it was a pub and they have cameras. But obviously, that wouldn't have defended his made-up case. So that was essentially the last situation I got myself into. Push security guard. That was in like the Riverlands while we were camping. And after that event happened, the next day, six cop cars rocked up to the campsite we were at. They were pulling all our friends out, the swags and stuff. And they eventually like grabbed me and they threw me in the back of the wagon, took me to a station, and I went through a lot of like lawyer fees to try and defend my case. And I ended up finding myself in the Adelaide Magistrates Court um, on a yeah, trying to not pledge guilty to the fact that it was like assault cause harm, aggravated assault cause harm. Firstly, it was assault because I assaulted someone technically. I pushed him, but obviously there was this whole fight scene. Um, and then the charge gets classed as aggravated if you're using a weapon, or the other two circumstances is if it's a security guard or if it's a police officer. Happened to be a security guard. So then it classed as aggravated assault. And then because he did an ACL, which is a serious injury, it was then a charge that said cause harm. So that was aggravated assault, cause harm. And that was one of the worst charges that you can possibly get, a very serious charge. And so I remember sitting in the courthouse with my partner at the time, Naomi, my dad, and my mom. And the first time I ever saw my dad cry, because we really thought I was going to jail. And in my head, I thought if I go to jail, I'm just going to read every day and do push-ups every day, and I'm just going to be so jacked, so intelligent, like I'm ready. But obviously, it's very stressful. And yeah, I was in the courthouse, and I remember the judge saying, like looking at the like my evidence versus the prosecuted evidence, and saying, okay, like I'm looking at these two, and he looked at me and he said, Daniel, if I was doing my job correctly, what I really should do right now is send you to jail. You don't deserve to be walking around free. But given your story and who you are and your goals and what you want to do with your life, I'm going to give you this one opportunity to change your life. And I never want to see your name in this courthouse again. If I do, then you're going straight to jail. And so yeah, it was since then that I started to change my life. I had a lot of good things going to me, but obviously there was the drugs and the alcohol. So I went completely sober for 3 months, and that was around like the December, November time when all my mates were inviting me to go to like clubs and stuff, and I was just sitting there sober. And I remember standing there sober while all my mates were partying, and I was partying with them. And I looked around, saw everyone like drunk, and I thought, this is who I was, and this is the kind of life that I could be going down, and this is how people really are in the clubs. And I can only see this now from a sober perspective. And and I just remember thinking like, this is not what I want to do. And that yeah, and that was very pivotal for me. So as I started getting into good life and learning how to talk professionally, starting to work on my dreams, I was also becoming sober and, not drinking and drugs. And since then I've never touched a drink, but I've never been drunk since. Um, so that really changed my life.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wake up call, isn't it? And look at what you did with the opportunity. Like there's so many people that uh, might have been in there on a similar charge to you who would easily go the other way, go back to the old habits, be in and out of jail, all of that. Um, but it's really, you said something, you held the integrity, you held the discipline, and you made it happen. And apples and oranges, the two different Dans, aren't they? It's yeah, very different people. What do you reckon the most confronting part of all of that was? Like, was there, someone that uh, maybe you lost contact with as a result, or what was the hardest thing to go through in terms of that life change?
Um, I think it was letting go of the relationship and the friendship with my best friend of 20 plus years. So when I was maybe 6 months old, I lived across the road from a friend, and we connected. We used to play like split screen Call of Duty. We'd play like hide and seek in the park with all the other army men in the backyard. As we started growing up, we started training, and that's actually how I got into my health and fitness. We started training every day together. When I say that I was in the gym for 5 hours, that was often with him. And I had to eventually have a conversation with him and said, like, this isn't what I want to do. I need to change. And as you might know, when you start to break away from what is normal in your friendship group, they almost try to draw you back in because it's scary for them, because even if it's unconscious, they see you growing, they see you changing, and they almost feel like if you continue going down that path, it validates them continuing on their path. So I had a conversation with him, and I wrote down everything I wanted to say to him. I said, this is how you make me feel sometimes in conversation. This is sometimes how I feel like when you put me down and you don't support me, and you're my best friend. I want to see that support from you. This is how you make me feel. This is what I need from you as a friend. And I'd love to open the space up for you. What do you need from me? What can I do better as a friend? And we had that conversation, and that was, really quite emotional and really hard for me to let go of. And that was the first time I cried as an adult, not there in person, but maybe like a couple of days later. I was sitting with Naomi just in the lounge room, and we were just talking normally. And I just started getting like a little bit of like, I felt these emotions well up in me, and I started getting like teary eyes. She was like, "Are you okay?" And I just like, I need to be on my own for a second. And I just like ran to my room, laid down on the ground, and I just had like water gushing out of my eyes, and I was just crying. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know what's going on. And she just kind of helped me understand that um it's probably because you're letting go of a part of you that has been a part of you for so long. So, that was really hard, but she really helped me a lot, Naomi. Yeah, and I'm incredibly grateful for her, although the relationships ended now, we're still really good friends. And, I often talk about, in my coaching about the hero's journey, about the hero going on an adventure. He has a refusal to the call, which for me was to become a personal trainer or let go of that old life. Then, you move into the phase where as you start going on this journey, you get supernatural aid. People start helping you, like the manager giving me that open certificate to be able to, for me to be able to work in the gym. And then as the hero moves through his journey, one of the phases that he gets into is meeting of the goddess. And that's where like some sort of feminine energy, whether it's artwork or a female specifically, helps lift you up in a way, helps you become a better man or helps you along your journey. And she was really that person for me. So she would have been my biggest support through all of those years. And my friend was just someone I had to let go of. And yeah, that definitely would have been like one of the hardest points in my life, as well as, tough conversations I had through that 7-year relationship. It was very hard as well. So I'm very thankful for her. I'm also very thankful for my best friend. Like he carried me through a lot of that journey. But as you know, like when we go on new journeys, sometimes we have to let go of friends that we had or people that we knew or philosophies that we adopted.
Mm.
And yeah.
Yeah, not everyone can come where we're going all the time, and not everyone's meant to be in every phase of your journey either. And, sometimes that's a great thing, sometimes that's a sad thing. But, like we've sort of touched on in the last couple of days as well, when you let go of this friend and with that, this old version of you, so to speak, there's grief in that as well, because it's uncomfortable, because it's letting go, because it is a part of you, or shedding or dying, or however you want to word it. It's a very, very powerful experience for sure. And I think when you see yourself go through that sort of thing and you have the nerves before you might have that tough conversation or whatnot, when you see yourself do the thing, you get more confidence, you get that validation that yes, I'm going down the right path. Yes, this is what it is now. And look, it just sounds like it's just sort of the momentum's just built and built and built from there. And it reminded me of a quote too. That not everyone that we're around or that is a part of our life is meant to evolve. Some people are actually here just to remind us what happens if we don't. And it's an unfortunate, harsh reality, but some people do serve that, or some iterations of these people serve that as well. Because there's every chance, I don't know, this guy might have improved his life drastically, and that might have been his catalyst. But yeah, it certainly is tough, and especially I think when you're going into that new stream of networking, that new finding of your tribe, your community, and whatnot, there is that isolation piece. How how are you navigating that now? Now that you're experiencing that in a different way, that isolation purely of being away from home, um, as opposed to what we were talking about before there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. Um, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So in January was when I started this world travel and I sold everything and I set off. And I was really excited to go travel, but really sad to leave all my friends and my family behind as I go travel. And it's lonely, honestly, traveling by yourself, especially me, someone that's so extrovert and had so many friends back home. You're in these places and it's like no matter where you go, nothing feels like home. And I think, biologically we're wired to have a home. And although they often say home is within you, not without, there's still, for me, I came from a loving family and I had a home my whole life. Then I moved out with Naomi and that became our home. And we would often have pets. We had one cat when we were living together. He unfortunately passed away. Then we adopted two new cats, and so I was always in a family and a home where we have one or two pets, and I'd be with my housemate Jason, or I was with Naomi, or I was with my family. And now traveling, although I have friends with me, I'm in often a new country, there's language barriers, and you just kind of wake up every day and you're just on your own. So yeah, it can be quite lonely. There's been a lot of times on my journey here where I've felt quite emotional, and I think what carries me through is like my purpose, what I want to do in this world, what I want to bring. Like I really want to create like a worldwide community. I want people to feel connected with each other no matter where they are in the world, and that's why I do what I do. And so everything I'm doing is to create that community and to continuously work on myself to become that person that is leading from the front in this community that I want to build. I want to be someone that inspires people to live beyond what they thought was possible. And that's why I do some of the events that I do. It's why I push beyond what a lot of people think is possible. People talk about marathons. I'm doing 106 kilometers on a trail with ridiculous incline and the tallest mountain in the world, and in Australia, sorry. Um, and so, now I really feel like I need to dig deeper and find another level. And so I'm in the process actually now, talking to a good friend and a mentor of mine, which I was in Sri Lanka with. His name's Damien Ryder. And we were just talking, and I think it's really time that I set off on another event and another journey, where I start to find answers for myself. And he said, the reason we do these events, because he does similar events, is to do events to find the questions that will reveal answers to the questions that we don't yet know how to ask for ourselves.
Mhm.
So we're looking for questions that give us the answers to the questions that we don't know yet. And so there are questions that I need to answer to become this person, to create what I want to do in this world, but I don't even know what those questions are. And so therefore I don't know how to answer them. So that's kind of where I am at my journey now. My purpose pulls me through. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it's like really hard, really isolating. Um, but I just need to focus on where I'm going, not where I've come from. And that can be really hard because there's a huge I think you said shedding of the snake skin. I think you use that analogy. There's a huge, of that letting go and battling these dragons. What feels like on my own sometimes now, I don't have a partner, I don't have a relationship, I don't have friends by my side carrying me through. I can have these Zoom calls and these calls, but essentially you wake up, you're on your own. And I think that's probably how a lot of people feel, even though they're in a house with someone that they love or around friends that support them. You have this mind on you 24/7 and starts to play tricks on you. So without a solid direction or a solid cause as to what you're doing in your life and where you're going, you can just feel quite lost, especially if you're a deep thinker,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really thank you for sharing that too, because it's not easy all the time to talk about things that you're struggling with. And on social media, it's getting a bit better now where we're seeing both sides of the spectrum, but you tend to see a lot of the glorification of one's life, and particularly around Men's Mental Health Month as well. This is a really important message, you've your whole journey, really, from where you were to who you became to where you are now, just, everyone would perceive, and quite rightly so would you, like you live in the dream, you're doing a lot of unreal things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that, mental health's always going to be A1 all the time. Like, we are all still human. We are, yes, we might be doing well in some aspects, but, you know, there is that polarity, or duality, I should say, between the two. So it's yeah, I really love that, and I really love that you've honed in on that need for the purpose and to be serving in that way that's serving you, but obviously also serving the community. It gives you that I don't want to say distraction, but it's not. I suppose it's a distraction in a way, but it's um, that sense of accomplishment or that sense of pursuit that validates the identity that you're creating, I suppose. Yeah, does that sort of ring true? Like, is that the main thing that is driving you through, or
Yeah, absolutely. There is a man called Viktor Frankl, and he was a Jewish journalist in the Nazi times. So he was in he's got a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he's passed away now. But he was a journalist in the Nazi camps and also a psychologist. And through his time in Nazi Germany, he would often go through like these single lines in the Nazi camps where the soldiers would say, "You're off to the death camp, you're off to the training camp, death camp, training camp." And he survived five of these lines where by chance they assessed him and said, "Yep, training camp. Yep, training camp." And the training camp was a place where, people got starved and worked 18-hour days just to be starved again and do it again. And he took this opportunity to study the minds. And what he found was that some people in these camps were healthy and surviving despite the harsh conditions. And there were some people that were relatively healthy, and there were some people that were starving to the bone. There were some people that were starving to the bone, completely destroyed and beaten up, but they wanted to continue to push through. And there were some people that were relatively healthy, but they chose to just not eat and starve themselves to death and die. And as he started to move through this, he started to realize that there was a significant difference between the people that wanted to live and the people that wanted to pass away, and it had nothing to do with their health and well-being, which was very interesting. And towards the end of his time in Nazi Germany, he eventually escaped with a couple of friends, and you read all of this in the book. And he started to define his own philosophy, which has become quite popular in philosophy and psychology. Is known as logotherapy, and he was the founder of that. And when he would have his patients post World War, he would get someone on the couch. They would just lay down on the couch, and one of the first things he would say to them is, "Why don't you just kill yourself? Why don't you just die?" And they'd have to answer that, and they'd say, "Well, I don't know. Like I guess like I'm just scared to die." And then he would say, "Okay, well, why is that?" "Well, like if I die, then I don't know, that would make my mum really sad." I'm like, "Okay, well, why does that matter? Why does it matter if your mum's sad?" "Well, like if my mum's sad, then that sort of impacts the whole family. And I feel like I'd be, letting my whole family down." "Okay, like why is it important for you to not let your family down?" "Well, like if I let my family down, then I would feel like I'm a failure and that I'm not here for, any real reason or purpose." "Okay, well, why is it important for you to have, reason or purpose to have this impact on your family?" And he would go through this process of why. And what he found through his time in Nazi Germany and through his patients is that humans are not chasing happiness, they're chasing the pursuit of what they find meaningful in life. And I really adopted that philosophy along with concepts I learned from Carl Jung, which was a student of Sigmund Freud in psychology. And Carl Jung coined the terms, personalities, archetypes. And as I started digging more into philosophy and psychology, and a lot of podcasts I listened to. Jim Carrey was a big inspiration to me as well, talking about if everyone had all the money in the world, it wouldn't be fulfilling or satisfying to them. I think he said something famous like, "I just wish everyone would have all the fame and all the money in the world just to realize that that wasn't it." And so I started to adopt a lot of these philosophies to understand myself and thought, okay, I really need to take the time to work out what I find meaningful in this life, a pursuit that I can dedicate myself to, a cause that is going to pull me through times that get tough. Like here, like I'm really going through it the last week or two, and I've really had thoughts of, man, like I just want to go back to Adelaide, be with my friends. I just want to go back to my old relationship. Um, and that may happen one day, but what I'm highlighting here is that there's a part of me that just wants to go back to what's comfortable, that just wants to go back to what I know, just wants to go back to, what I consider easy compared to what is here now. Like at the time it feels hard, but in comparison, when you start to like elevate your life and become someone new, you really have to move past and not eradicate, but sort of accept and move on from who you once were. And the only thing carrying me through that is this pursuit that I find meaningful and want to impact others and want to change lives like I changed myself. And although I started my journey as a personal trainer, what I'm really interested in is mental health and solving people's mental problems and helping them get from A to B, whether that's like them struggling in their relationship, their mental health, the courage to face difficult situations or conversations in their life and help them through that, because that's really what's helped me in my life. So yeah, that's essentially what's carrying me through.
Yeah, and it's so unbelievable that you're able to articulate that. It takes a very, very powerful sense of self-awareness to be able to, yes, process the emotional side of that, maybe that longing for the comfort, but to also have the long term in mind, the rational, this is where I'm going, thanks for where I've been perspective. Like that's really powerful, man. And full hats off to you for sticking to the journey and just taking as it comes. It's been unreal to watch, and we're only just getting started. I think you still got a few things coming up, and one of those is a retreat in September. Would you like to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so yeah, that was part of my journeys in Sri Lanka as I started connecting and networking with different people. One of the people that I met, her name was Glenda. She's run like a lot of yoga retreats, and she has this beautiful place called the Plantation House, which is like like a tropical mansion almost. And I went there to do some yoga sessions, and she was really impacted by my breathwork and meditation session. She said, would you like to collaborate with the yoga instructor next week? And I started running sessions there. People were really loving it. And she said, why don't you host your own retreat? And I thought, you know what, that's a great idea. And she said, yeah, you can use our place. And obviously, I have to pay her for that place. But I think she gave me a good deal. Um, and I started, seeing all these parts of the island. I just thought this place is an absolute paradise. Scuba diving, real life safaris where you see elephants up close, leopards, the surf, the rainforest hikes, and honestly, just like the people and the culture in Sri Lanka. As for I really want to invite other people to Sri Lanka, and if my goal is to create worldwide community, I also want to intertwine adventure because that's a big part of what I do. So I decided to run a retreat that would be focused on personal growth, adventure, and wellness. So, like I've set out meals that will help someone feel energized or know how the food impacts their focus or their attention or their level of fatigue and how to hydrate oneself. And I really want people to come to this retreat and then to go home having tools on knowing what to eat, why they're eating, what that does for them, a sense of adventure to experience the world from my eyes and not just experience the mundane and going out to the beach maybe once a month for a beach day, but to really get amongst nature and the adventure. And I believe that our own personal nature is so intertwined with like the physical nature. I believe it's all the same. And I think a lot of us in this modern world, we get lost in thinking we're just this measly human being that's walking around and sometimes wants to go see nature and sometimes come back. But I really think that Sri Lanka and this retreat is going to be an opportunity for people to intertwine the nature as a whole with their own nature, to feel connected with all of that, to understand nutrition and health from a holistic perspective, and to go through some of the deeper philosophies and psychological concepts that I've used to transform my life with other people, things that I can't do on a 60-minute call, like helping someone really identify and understand their purpose in life, their anchor for being that's pulled me through, and also the lighthouse for a direction of where they're going in their life, to understand where they are in their hero's journey, to trust that where they are now, they're not lost. They're just in a certain section of the human being. Maybe they're at the start of their adventure where they keep refusing this call that's been calling at them from like a supernatural sense to go and pursue this thing that you find meaningful. And it takes courage to do that. So I really want to help people like understand their own psychology, to trust where they are now, and to have a really solid foundation and beacon as to where they want to go, and something that anchors them from the ground, no matter if they're ending a relationship, they're struggling in their relationship, they don't have the friends around them, they're not in a career they find meaningful for them, but for them to really trust where they are now, where they're going, and to have the conviction and the courage to chase that. So that's what I hope to bring for people in Sri Lanka, which is going to be in September. So as I sort of go around the world, I'm going to be back in Sri Lanka for the end of September to host that retreat. So I'm really excited about that.
That's so awesome, man. If I could go, I would absolutely love to, but I'm going to have a 2.5 month old ish by that time, and so unfortunately I won't be able to be there. But I'll certainly put some details in the show notes for the retreat as well. Um, and yeah, I think if it's anything that interests you, if you're watching this, feel free to get in touch with myself or Dan. I'll also put his details specifically in the show notes as well. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this, brother. It's been a really awesome chat. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with, or maybe a favorite quote of yours that's resonating at the moment?
Maybe two, and they're both by Nietzsche. He was a philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. One of them is, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how," which is very fitting for what we're talking about. And the other quote is, "The higher you soar, the smaller you appear to those who cannot fly." So those are some quotes for you to just, for anyone watching this, to sort of digest and think about how that applies to your own life. And lastly, we run so I work as a coach, and I'm partnered with another coach, and we run a community called Solace. And this is a community that you can join if you do feel like you want to get on top of your health, your personal development, everything I spoke about that we're doing in Sri Lanka. We jump on weekly calls, we do training programs, nutrition programs. Please don't feel called to, sign up to my coaching. But if you would ever like to jump on a call and just meet some people, let us know, and I can send you through that link, and you can just jump on as a once-off and meet some new people. And then in Adelaide, which I'm not there at the moment, but you yourself, Trav, you're obviously going there quite often, running breath work. That's a completely free community. That's at Henley Beach. So all you need to do is literally bring ice, meet some people. So if you are feeling isolated, please just reach out. It's uncomfortable. I know. It's like when I joined the run club in Dubai, you're just that person, and all these people are like hugging and talking to each other, and you're just like, well, who am I? No one knows who I am. But before long, someone will introduce themselves to you, namely you, someone else. And you really just need the courage to get out of your comfort zone if you feel called to do that. Some people are quite, fulfilled in their own life and their own environment. That's completely fine. But I just want people to know that there are options out there. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of courage or taking action to do that. It's easy to put these things off, I think.
For sure, for sure. And just touching on the Sunday mornings that we have here in Adelaide at the moment, it is getting a little bit colder, and so that is a bit of an extra challenge for people as well. But I do encourage you, if you are called, to accept the challenge, to be out there. I know it's a Sunday morning, and we usually do like to lay in a bit when it is a bit colder, but we'd absolutely love to see you out there. Community is one of the most important values that humankind can have and adhere to. And yeah, we're every fortnight at the moment. So we're off this week. We'll be back next week, and it's 8 a.m. Down at Henley Beach. So, with that said, as I mentioned before, I'll put Dan's details in the show notes as well as the Solace community's details in there as well. As for me, I'm at the journey of Trav on Instagram, Trav Dittmar on TikTok and YouTube, and wherever you find this podcast, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube as well. I'm pretty accessible, so I'll put those details in there as well. But yeah, once again, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you to Mind Over Matter Practice as well for sponsoring this podcast. And we'll leave it there. Thanks again and see you next time.
See you then. Thanks, Trav.